go back into session here and continue on with our committee reports. And we're going to, now that we've concluded the business of the joint meeting of the board and the DIC, we're going to move ahead with the Legislative and Regulatory Committee meeting. And with that, I will turn it over to the committee member chair, Ms. Burton.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order and call the roll.
Burton.
Here.
Chan. Here. Medina. Here. And Morrow. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the April 11th, 2017 minutes. Are there any questions or concerns? I'm sorry.
I'll move.
Okay, move Chan,
Second.
second Morrow. You call the roll?
Burton.
Yes.
Chan.
Yes.
Medina. Yes. Morrow.
Yes.
We have a motion that passed.
Okay. The next item, item 3, is the legislative calendar. And I wanted to point out just a couple of things that the legislature is in recess right now and is in recess until August 21st. And the interim study recess period begins September 15th. So all legislation that's going to move forward will have to move to the governor by that date. Any questions or concerns or public comments? The next item is item 4. And those are the bills that are before us for consideration. The first bill is Assembly Bill 40. And the bill currently has been re-referred to the Committee on Judiciary. We took a watch position on this bill previously, and unless there is some question or concern from members, I would suggest that we keep that watch position.
Do we have to move?
Okay.
No concerns.
Item 4B is Assembly Bill 710 by Wood. I want to point out one thing about the analysis that is in the agenda. This is not a bill that we are sponsoring. This bill, as I understand it, has several amendments that will be considered when the legislature returns. It has always been my position that if we can't see it, we can't vote on it. And so my suggestion to you is that we continue with the watch position. Understanding that what that means is that we won't take an official position on this bill before the end of the legislative session. But my understanding is that the amendments are significant, and even if someone wanted to tell me what they were, if I don't see it, I don't have an opinion on it. So unless there is some objection,
No.
I would suggest
No,
that we keep a watch position on this.
I would agree with that. So I think just reading this bill as it's presented to us, there's a lot of questions I have regarding it. And hopefully those amendments will help to answer some of those questions. So we'll see. So
Is there-
I think a watch position is appropriate on.
Okay. Is there any public comment on AB 710? Seeing none, let's move on to agenda item 4C. I believe, and I don't have those notes before me, that we had taken a watch position on this bill previously. And again, my recommendation is that we continue with that position. Unless
I
there are
agree.
objections.
I have no objection to that. I think this, just so that we know, this is the bill that came out of the Orange County
Right.
pediatric pulpotomy infections that were obviously evident. And I don't know, I think there's some far-reaching consequences or unplanned consequences of the wording of this bill having to do with exposure of the pulp, because, many times direct pulp capping procedures are done. And if you took this bill literally the way it is now, if that happened, you would need to have been using sterile water in your handpiece when you're removing decay and you get a pulp exposure, because you have involved the pulp. As an endodontist, I'm taking the pulp out completely. Now, I'm using disinfectant irrigating solutions, but even in the process of that, am I going to use sterile water to remove the pulp tissue before I get down to the root canal? So there's a lot of unintended consequences that I think need to be spelled out in this. So I think a continuing of a watch position. I'm not ready at this point to recommend a opposition for it, but I certainly need to see some changes.
Okay. Okay. Any public comment?
Mary McEwen with CDA. I just want to let the Legislative Committee know that CDA is working with the Author's Office on amendments to address the specific concerns that Dr. Morrow presented, and that they're in the works. They have not been drafted in language yet, but we're definitely concerned similarly to the same things that Dr. Morrow just spoke to.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? The next bill is Senate Bill 641, Laura. That bill, because there has been no hearing and deadlines have passed, that bill is essentially dead. So there's no need for any action from us on that one.
We're going to have a funeral service.
Ouch.
Same thing with SB 762, Laura. The bill was referred to Assembly Bill, to the Committee on Business and Professions, but no hearing date was ever set. So that bill is also dead. The next item is item 5, and for that, I'd like to invite
Allison Veramontes, Legislative and Regulatory Analyst. I just wanted to give a brief update regarding some of the pending regulatory packages. In regards to the continuing education requirements and basic life support equivalency standards, this was deemed a priority by the board, and board staff will present proposed language tomorrow, August 11th, as agenda item 21 for the board's consideration to initiate a possible rulemaking regarding the defining, discovery, and filing. The final approved rulemaking file was submitted to the Office of Administrative Law on April 13, 2017, and the regulation was approved and became effective on July 1st, 2017. In regard to the dental assisting comprehensive regulatory proposal, board staff is working on the development of final proposed language, and it will present it to the board for consideration at a future meeting. In regards to the interim therapeutic restoration competency standards, for instruction, board staff will present proposed language tomorrow, August 11th, as agenda item 23 for the board's consideration to initiate a rulemaking. Regarding the elective facial cosmetic surgery permit application requirements and renewal, board staff is currently working on the initial rulemaking file documents. Regarding the fee increase, as mentioned in the May 2017 board meeting, after submitting the approved rulemaking on April 13, 2017, the Office of Administrative Law found consistency issues with the proposal and issued a disapproval of the package. Corrections made at the May meeting are going through the approval process, and board staff anticipates OAL to approve the file sometime in August. Regarding the institutional standards, board staff is currently working on the initial rulemaking file documents. In regards to the licensure by credential application requirements, board staff is currently working on the rulemaking file documents to bring to the board for consideration at a future meeting. And lastly, in regards to the mobile and portable dental unit registration requirements, the board's March 2016 meeting proposed regulatory language. However, while drafting the initial rulemaking documents, it was found that the proposed language needed to be further developed. As a result, board staff will present proposed language tomorrow, August 11th, as agenda item 20 for the board's consideration to initiate a possible rulemaking. That's all I have.
Thank you. There's no action required from the committee on these issues, but is there any public comment on any of these?
Fran, I would like to make a comment if I can regarding the tremendous workload that the regulatory team has at the present time. And I want to admire you and thank you for all of the many hours that you're spending on these regulatory packages. It's a big burden, and welcome to the team. You came in the middle of a big pile of work to do, so, and we haven't scared you off yet, so that's good.
And don't, this is not the norm. This is one of the shorter committee meetings, so. With that, are there any board member comments on items not on the agenda? Any public comments? I said that. So I think with that, we're adjourned. Oh, the other item that we all ask about is whether there are any legislative proposals that anyone wants to suggest going forward.
No, we got enough right now, so.
Okay. With that, I think we are really adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on now to the Anesthesia Committee, and so if the additional Anesthesia Committee members would like to join us.
Burton. Chan. Lai. Lay. Morrow. Witcher.
Here.
You have a quorum?
First item of business would be approval of the May 11, 2017 committee minutes. Dr. Morrow, your mic. Thank you. Got the green light. You've all had a chance to review these. Do you have any comments or questions, any recommended changes? It's been moved to a second.
Second.
Do
Dr.
any
Morrow?
public comments regarding?
Dr. Morrow, I had an email from Alejandra from the California Society of Dentists, Anesthesiologists, and she was requesting that Dr. Mashney's statement be changed so to read that they support AB 224 as it was introduced and before it was amended in the Assembly Business and Professions Committee. She was asking for an amendment.
Okay, I'm not, where is that specifically found in our minutes?
It would be on the second page, agenda item 5A. And his comments are on the third page.
Okay. Okay, first, second, third paragraph down on page 3 of 5. Now, what was the correction that she was requesting?
Okay, so they're asking that the first line be changed to, they support AB 224 as it was introduced and before it was amended in the Assembly, Business, and Profession Committee. They were
Okay,
fine with the rest
where
of
the minutes that I'm looking at, the first line says that Mr. Michael Mashman, which should be doctor, okay? California Society of Dental Anesthesiologists stated it is opposed to this bill. She's
that
wanting that sentence struck.
struck. and
Do we have a recording of that to verify that that in fact is what Dr. Mashney said and not what we have here?
It was verified by staff.
It was verified by staff
Yeah.
that that is an appropriate change? Thank you. Okay. That's it?
Yep.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept that amendment? So moved, second?
And can I make a comment,
Sure.
please?
Well, once we get it seconded, then we can do that. Did you second it?
No, Chan did.
No, he
Jan did.
motioned.
No.
He motioned. Dr. Chan motioned, so we need a
Oh.
second.
First, you
Oh,
want to second it?
second,
Okay,
second.
now you can tell me
Okay.
about it.
In general, not just for this, and I guess this is more directed to staff, the minutes are getting wordier and wordier. I think that there should be a summary, and there is always the recorded full session, but we shouldn't try to capture that, all of that in the minutes. And so that's just kind of a general comment to staff.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded that we strike the first sentence and substitute it with the sentence that, of the corrected amendment. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed?
Oh, you have to take the roll, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Roll call.
I'm going too fast. Slow me down.
Burton? Chan? Lai? Lay? Morrow?
Yes.
Witcher?
Okay. Agenda item number 3, going to the general anesthesia and conscious sedation evaluation statistics. I think the data that is presented pretty much speaks to itself as far as the board is concerned. Do any of you have any questions or comments regarding the reported anesthesia statistics? I will recognize, okay?
I have some comments. You know, as chair of this, of LCP, where we tracked this for a number of years before it went to anesthesia committee, this year, we're doing a much better job on the evaluations. Evaluations overall are up. Unfortunately, the number of MGAs evaluations is down, as it has been, because of the difficulty of evaluating those particular class of permit holders. The other thing is, I don't think they addressed this specifically. I think our evaluators, our evaluator pool is more or less flat or declining. That has been a trend for a number of years running, so just some
And
observations.
we're obviously still very much in need of conscious sedation evaluators. So
Absolutely.
goes without saying. Yes.
Well, Bernie Vova, DDS licensing unit manager. I was just going to say that in your board materials, you'll find the general anesthesia and consultation evaluation statistics. You guys have already started talking about them, so if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you.
I'm going to give Bernie a little bit of a hard time because he's got a little bit of stage fright. But Bernie is our licensing manager, and he doesn't usually come to these meetings. So we thought we would torture him at least once or twice so that you know, he could become accustomed to it. But the board members are pretty good. I mean, compared to me, the board members are really good.
That's very true, very true. I appreciate that.
We don't usually chew people up. you
No,
know, so we're
no.
okay.
So, but if you do have any questions about, Bernie will be giving the report on the licensure statistics later too, and then he's available to answer any of these questions if you have any.
Okay. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
You'll have to come more often. Okay?
I don't think I have a choice.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4. I am going to turn this agenda item over to our vice chair of the Anesthesia Committee, Fran Burton, to lead us in the discussion of these 3 bills. Fran?
Okay, the first bill is AB 224. And given that there was no action taken on this bill in its last committee hearing, there is no action or discussion needed. Any questions? Any public comments?
So when it says the analysis has been withdrawn by the author, how does that, is it totally withdrawn and it's never coming back? It says the analysis is withdrawn. So we spend time on that and all of a sudden it's never coming back, right?
It was, the hearing on this was a little bit confrontational. And at the end, I think there was some confusion about whether the bill was withdrawn or whether it was a 2-year bill. It's our understanding that it's a 2-year bill. But in any case, there will be no action on this, and nothing in this bill becomes law. There was another question that I was asked. The status remains as it is.
So Fran, would it be fair or accurate for me to assume that this bill, even though it has been, pulled, let's say, it hasn't been canceled? instead of it being an emergency or a fast-track bill, it is now a regular plod its way through the process bill. Is that correct? But it isn't withdrawn completely.
It's not withdrawn completely.
Okay.
But it could not be heard again before next year.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
So Brent, if Thurman terms out, what happens to the bill? If it's a 2-year bill?
Unless someone else wants to become author of it, the bill is dead.
Okay.
And he won't term out. He is, yeah. Anything else? Any public comment? The next item is Agenda Item 4B, 392 Bates. This is another bill that, my understanding, it will be significantly amended when the legislature returns. And again, I think our policy should be, if we can't see it, we don't vote on it. And so I would suggest that we take a watch position on this bill.
So is that a suggestion or a motion?
It can be a motion.
Okay. It was a motion. I have a second.
Okay. So move Burton, second Morrow.
Question.
Yes.
I understand this bill didn't make the deadlines. Is it possible to do any action on this bill?
Anything is possible.
We already have, staff, don't we already have a watch position on this?
Yes, we have a watch position.
But, and if the other part of your question has to do with us doing something further, we won't meet again before. Okay. SB 501 Glacier. This bill currently is in appropriations. One of the concerns that we had raised previously was the cost on this. This is another bill that will be amended significantly. And I think that some people may be aware of what those amendments are. We're not. And so if we did not take a position on this previously, we did take a previous watch position. I would recommend that we keep that position. Any comments?
Just as a point of information, as these things go through the legislature, at any point in time, the form changes from time to time. Is it appropriate for us to adopt a new watch position each time it comes before us? Because what was the prior meeting isn't the same thing it is as it is now. What do you think?
Well, if we have in writing what those changes are, but if it's simply a verbal communication of what a change might be, I don't feel comfortable taking a position on something that we haven't seen in writing. Again,
Right.
as Fran states, if it isn't written down, I don't believe it. It's like with our dental records with patients. If it wasn't written down, it didn't happen. Okay, so. we need to
The other thing, my other comment, not necessarily about a watch position, but about taking a more specific position, is that there can even be changes after that. And so unless you know that it is the final definitive thing, I don't know that we have to do a watch for our watch in this case.
Okay.
Well, I trust that if there were significant changes that we knew had been made and were in writing, then we could bring it to our committee and discuss it. But
Right,
otherwise,
right.
it's been notified, or you've been told that there's some changes that are being made. What they
And
are,
I think
we
that
don't
what I
really
would
know.
clarify for the audience is that unless we see something that is in bill form and not in some draft negotiation form.
I was just going to point out that this is the same version of the bill that we saw at the May board meeting, so no changes have been in print since May 1st.
Okay, so we have public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Is it on? Is it on? Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Vice Chair. Gary Cooper, representing Cal Amos, and we are the sponsors of SB 501 by Senator Glazer. As all of you know, this issue with the general anesthesia and the pediatric anesthesia has been ongoing for the last 2 years. And so it was our position at the beginning of the year that we would introduce a piece of legislation to try to deal with some of these issues in a very moderate way and take some of your recommendations that you sent to Senator Hill and take them to heart and put them in a piece of legislation that we thought would deal with the issue in a very moderate way. Subsequently, you have seen that AB 224 that dealt with the issues in a little bit more of a dramatic way has not been successful this year, and as Ms. Burton said, it will be a 2-year bill because Mr. Thurman most likely will carry it on next year depending on what happens. But SB 501 is continuing to move, and we are working with CDA and the pediatric dental community to deal with a bill that we think is very moderate and that will address some of your concerns that you expressed. So with that, I don't want to take up too much time. I will let Dr. Tyko, who is the past president of Cal Amos, discuss this a little bit. There are amendments that are in Leg Council right now that we worked out with CDA and with the pediatric dental community, and you'll be seeing those most likely in Leg Council form if you get them by probably Monday, and they will be in print probably in the first week they get back on the 21st. So with that, I'd like Dr. Tyko to kind of address the issue a little bit more.
Well, actually, I have a written statement here, but I think Gary hit all my highlights.
I didn't say that.
Anyways, Len Tyko, immediate past president of Cal Amos. And thank you all for your time. And I know I've heard several times that you all can't really take a position on something that's not in writing, but the latest version of SB 501 should be out Friday or Monday. So really, we're here just to say that we'd like to work further on this. We've worked a lot with CDA and with pediatric dentists, and we'd like to work with the board on this too. One of the big upcoming changes too would be the Office of Oral Health would take over the study, which would take the burden off the dental board, that study being the 2-provider model and all. Really our intent is to take your own recommendations, broadly speaking, and move them forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from board members? Any other public comments? Okay.
Alan Felsenfeld, on behalf of CDA. CDA has worked closely with the author and the Cal Amos, the sponsor, on amendments to SB 501. With these amendments, CDA continues to support SB 501 as we believe that it implements many of the recommendations put forth by the Dental Board of California report and uses a thoughtful, evidence-based approach to address the complex issue of pediatric dental anesthesia and limit potential increased costs on the dental health care delivery system. The proposed amendments will further align the bill with national guidelines, streamline the new permitting structure, and provide a more feasible implementation timeline. These changes keep the strong safety protections intended in the bill while keeping to a minimum any negative effects on access to care for pediatric patients, as well as new costs to the function of the Dental Board of California. We are in support.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anyone else?
A question, we've taken a position of watch on this bill before. I know, again, you recommended that we continue the watch. Is it necessary for us to make a motion to continue the watch position, or just, is that sufficient?
I don't think that we have ever done that before.
Okay. So once we've taken a position, if we're not going to change it, we don't have to make a motion to continue the watch position.
Right, unless there was something else outside of the bill that someone wanted to discuss or there was a change, there's no need to do the continue watch.
No use doing something we don't need to do.
Right.
Okay, thanks. Okay, item number 6, public comments not on the agenda.
Monica Miller on behalf of the California Association of Nurse Anesthetists, and just wanted to thank your board once again for continuing to work with our association in hopes of getting CRNAs the general anesthesia permit to practice in the pediatric setting in dentist offices. We're continuing to work with staff. We provided language. We know that you guys have been incredibly busy this year, and we appreciate that, but also look forward to working through the fall and hopefully coming up with something that works for everybody and running a bill next year. So thank you very much.
If you could, maybe you could help me answer a question that I'm not clear on. In what facility or what setting in California are CRNAs allowed to administer anesthesia without supervision?
All settings, actually. The only ones.
Except the dentist office?
The dentist office, we have to have, the dentist has to hold the permit, only because we're not allowed to hold that permit. But we are not a supervised provider. We are unsupervised.
Right.
Yeah, we
So
practice in hospitals, clinics.
So in other words, like a JCO-approved outpatient surgical center, you could administer your services without supervision?
Correct. We are unsupervised, absolutely.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much.
Any other comments, questions from the public? Okay. Future agenda items for this committee from stakeholders. Appreciate that. And committee members, any agenda items for the future as far as committee is concerned? I think we have conducted our business. Appreciate your cooperation and your contributions, and we'll see you 3 months from now. Okay, good. We are adjourned.
With that, we'll move back into full session and quickly recess into closed session. So thank you, everybody, for coming. This concludes our public business for the day. Oh, for everybody's information, we'll reconvene tomorrow in open session at 9 a.m. 9 o'clock. Sharp.